Okay. Okay. Here's this. The reason I wanted to read this is a slightly tangential, but it gives you a sense of what's going on out there. So this is another Facebook-related thing. And it says, Facebook saves extensive call text data made by Android users. And that's kind of weird. So some Android cell phone users noticed recently that Facebook has saved a virtual trove of their personal call data that extends back years. Amid an outcry over the social network's handling of a controversy involving a third-party application's misuse of personal data, several Android users who pulled down archived data from Facebook found very detailed personal metadata. That information included call logs containing names, phone numbers, and the length of each call made. So, to explain that, somehow Facebook connected by people who gave permission, knowingly or more likely unknowingly, Facebook recorded, if you had an Android phone, who you called, when you called, how long you talked, and it saves that stuff for years. That's kind of weird. So in a statement given to Ars Technica, Facebook pointed out that the call log was a widely used practice to begin by uploading your phone contacts. The company clarified Sunday that it only collects the data on users who opt in to the feature when installing Messenger or Facebook Lite. Quote, people have to expressly agree to use this feature. If at any time they no longer wish to use this feature, they can turn it off in settings or here for Facebook Lite users, and all previously shared call and text history shared via that app is deleted, the company said. Somehow I have a hard time imagining anyone doing that on purpose. Like, yes, I would like Facebook to collect all my calls and record them. I don't know how this is of any use to them. But anyway, in the wake of the Cambridge Analytica data scandal, more Facebook users have become increasingly educated about the data they're sharing with the platform and how that information is being used. Facebook came under mounting pressure from privacy advocates, advertisers, and people who use the platform. On Sunday, the network was forced to take out ads in major publications to apologize for the data scandal. Some users have even begun opting out of using the site altogether, although Facebook founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg said last week that people weren't ditching the site in large numbers. So I'm just pointing that out or reading about that to give you a sense here of the kinds of things that you probably don't know are available to people that you don't know they're available to. That's a little bit of a confusing way of saying it, but the point is that there's a lot of information about you nowadays in particular that is accessible, and I would say even easily accessible, to people who know how to get it. It's not accessible to me, for example, because I don't know how to get it. So I wouldn't even know. I mean, I have a hard enough time finding the phone number of somebody that I'm looking for. Like, oh, I'm supposed to call so-and-so. I wonder what their phone number is. If I don't have a phone book, I try to look it up this way. And now I mean, that's how ill-informed I am about the availability of this kind of information. But there are people who know this stuff and who have the technical expertise and in many cases the legal ability to gain access to stuff like this that we don't even know exists about us. So for example, you have a credit score. What is contained in your credit score? Well, it's a list of everybody that you ever got credit from, everybody you owe money to in any reasonable way, not your best friend who gave you $5 last week, but any company or business that you owe money to, especially if you've been late in paying them or haven't paid them. So there, you know, through your credit history, someone can get a very good idea of the things that you buy. If you use Google, for example, as a search engine, Google knows what you look for because they have your IP address and they have a listing of everything you ever typed in. So if you say, I'd like to know about lawn care, well, Google knows you're interested in lawn care. Your credit history might know that you've spent a bunch of money on grass seed or with a lawn care company. So from that, they can advertise products to you like new and improved grass seed, new and improved lawnmowers, things like that. Maybe you recently bought a lawnmower, so they know you've got one. Whatever. Those are just two things. Your cell phone company knows where you are. The internet knows where you are when you access the internet. Your credit card company knows every place you shop that you use your credit card. So from all of these things, and many, many others that I'm not even aware of, it is possible to put together some pretty detailed information about you. What kinds of things you like to do, what kind of money you have and how you like to spend it, where you go, where you live. A lot of things that if they, I'm wiggling my fingers with that air quotes here, they are trying to find you, whoever they are, ICE in this instance, there are a lot of different avenues that they can search to find you if they want to, and if they can convince somebody to tell them that information. So Facebook said, if you remember in the article a couple of minutes ago, that we only give, we're very serious about guarding information and taking care of information, and we demand to know what it's for, and we want, appropriate safeguards in place. Yeah, that all sounded really good until you read the Cambridge Analytica thing and the whole thing about Facebook knowing all your Android calls and who they were to and when they were. And then you start realizing, well, they collect this stuff, but they're not as good at protecting it as they say they are. Their official policy says X. We protect and we're very careful. The things that we've been discovering recently say, maybe not so much. If you know how to play the game with them, you can get access to a lot of this stuff, and they either don't know you have it or don't care that you have it or really didn't ask you what you needed it for. So I'm not trying to make anybody paranoid. I mean, obviously there are lots of us who go around going, oh, maybe I should encrypt everything and get off the internet, go off the grid and all that sort of thing. Well, maybe you should. I don't know what kind of lifestyle you have that would make you that fearful of being surveilled. I mean, it would be, I think I am a relatively active person in social justice causes, let's say. And so there are people that could maybe really want to know more about me because they might think that that makes me a dangerous or subversive kind of individual. And there's a lot that they can find out. But I sort of opt into the idea of, well, let them know it. I'm not hiding it. I'm not pretending that I'm not interested in immigration, for example, that I don't care about this. I am very publicly saying I do care about it. I have a radio show. I announce at the beginning of the show what my name is and what my interest is. And then I sit there for an hour and talk about it. So it's, in my opinion, I won't say I'm safer. I feel safe enough to be open about what I'm doing. But I am not at risk of being deported. I am not at risk of being jailed for anything that I can think of unless they change the laws and make support of immigrants a criminal activity or something like that. I suppose they could do that. But in the meantime, I feel relatively comfortable. My employer's not going to fire me. I don't have any family members that are going to disown me because of my beliefs or anything like that. So I am in a fortunate position to be immune from a lot of the things that some people would be afraid of. But there are a lot of people, listeners in particular, and people that I work with through the forum that have a reason to be concerned, if not for themselves, then for their loved ones and family members. And that's why it is important to have an idea about all this stuff so you can be aware and be careful what you do and how you do it. Because there are a lot of ways. I mean, we're all on the internet these days, and many, if not most of us, are connected to social media in some way. It's a great tool. You can speak to people very far away. You can share your ideas, share information about things that information about things that are important to you. Sorry, my grammar is getting all tangled up in my tongue here. Share information about things that are important to you. There's a lot you can do with it. You can mobilize people with it. It's a great connecting, communicating, and organizing tool. But you have to be aware that it is also a dangerous one in terms of personal information. You are known on the internet. Who you are and how you go about your day is something that can be found. I mean, you may not think about it. You may think, oh, I'm just random when I sign on. It doesn't mean. But there are patterns. If you can see somebody's information over a period of time, like these days of the week are clearly your days off because you stay up late and then you do random things during the day. And then these days of the week you're working because for this 8-hour span or whatever it is, suddenly you're not around, you're not making calls, you're not online. But right at 5 o'clock or 5:30, there's your phone going off. There are things about you and your lifestyle that can be told from that larger pool of information that's available about you. So if you have some reason to not want the government, for one thing, to know where you are or what you're doing or too much about you, social media is not necessarily your friend. The internet is not necessarily your friend. Cell phones are not necessarily your friend. All these things can be very useful to you and to other people. So it's a good thing to be aware of and to be conscious of. Because, right now we have a government that is very, very anti-immigrant. Very, very anti-immigrant. Just ridiculously over the top, some of these people. And so if they can do it, and they can figure out a way to do it, they will. And we need to be aware of that, and we just need to be conscious of it and careful about what we do and how we do it. Anyway, so I've gone on long enough about that. I should talk about something else here for a while. We're getting near the 3/4 point of the show. I'll remind you that you're listening to CU Immigration here on WRFU-LP, Urbana, 104.5 FM. I appreciate you tuning in, particularly with the sporadic way that I show up here. But, I'm doing what I can. I'll just put it that way. So I thought this next thing would be interesting. I wanted to get to this before the end of the show. This is from Mass Live, whatever that is. It's from Springfield, Massachusetts. Yeah, there's the story here. Okay. It's entitled Springfield Church to Welcome First Family Seeking Sanctuary from Deportation. All right. Sorry. Doing some technical stuff here. All right. So members of the Springfield Interfaith Sanctuary Coalition said Monday that a woman who is in fear of deportation and her children are taking sanctuary at South Congregational Church on Maple Street. A formal announcement is scheduled at 11:30 a.m. at the church. It is the first family taking sanctuary in Springfield. A small delegation of clergy leaders and members of the coalition have driven to Hartford to inform U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials of the sanctuary plans. The coalition is a program of the Pioneer Valley Project. Quote, "At South Congregational United Church of Christ, we understand that we are called upon to love our neighbor and welcome the stranger among us," said the Reverend of South Congregational Church. "The group stands with the mother as an act of faith in the face of injustice and as partners in building the beloved community of God," he said. The organization asked that the name of the woman not be revealed until the formal announcement, but said she arrived in the United States from Peru in 2001, fleeing poverty in her home country in search of better economic opportunity in the United States. While some cities, such as Northampton, have been established as sanctuary cities through mayoral executive orders, Springfield Mayor Dominic Sarno had previously said that Springfield is not a so-called sanctuary city, referring to communities where police departments do not assist federal agencies in detaining and deporting selected undocumented immigrants. Under Northampton's policy, the city's police department does not honor non-criminal detainer requests from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, but detainer requests are honored in criminal cases. Excuse me. President Donald Trump's pledge to crack down on undocumented immigrants and to withhold federal funding from so-called sanctuary cities has led to many protests around the nation and legal challenges. According to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE agents seeking undocumented immigrants are encouraged not to conduct enforcement actions at, quote, sensitive locations. Unless there are extenuating circumstances, there has been some other law enforcement action at the location, or if agents are invited onto the location by a designated official. Sensitive locations are defined as schools or houses of worship, which is what makes, this is an editorial aside, which is what makes churches places them well placed, I guess is what I'm trying to say, to act in the sanctuary movement, which I will get to in a moment. I guess, yeah, okay. There's not much else here to go on and read. It's just basically about the particulars of this particular situation. The particulars of the particular. Gosh, I love the way my brain works sometimes. Anyway, I brought that up because there are a couple of different groups here in Champaign-Urbana that we have been working with, that I have been working with, that are interested in rebuilding the sanctuary movement. Members who have worked on sanctuary issues in the past, in the 1980s, excuse me, and who would like to revitalize that movement in the face of the increased criminalization and sort of random enforcement of immigration law that seems to be the norm these days. And so I don't believe any churches have yet begun providing sanctuary at this time, but it is being discussed in more than one church here in Champaign-Urbana. And there are several groups that are wanting to work with and willing to work with these faith communities in order to provide them with whatever they need in order to make this happen. Because we feel that as the Trump administration progresses, excuse me, I'm starting to lose my voice as usual. As the administration progresses with its anti-immigrant efforts, there will be more and more people faced with, basically pointless deportation. By pointless, I mean their only crime is just being here without proper documentation. They're not criminals. They're not causing trouble. They are members of their community. They are refugees, even in the sense that they definitely came from places that were having economic problems with violence, with drugs, with gangs, whatever the situation in their home country. They decided that coming here was the best option for them or their family. And I really have to, I know I've said this 1 billion times on this show. I'm being literal here, 1 billion. I counted every single time I said it. No. But I've said this many, many times. But it's important to understand and to remember that nobody just packs up and goes to another country on a whim. It's not something that you're sitting around one day and you go, you know what, France. I want to live in France. What do you think? Let's just go. So take the kids out of school. I'm going to quit my job. We'll sell everything we own pretty much, sell the house, say goodbye to all our family and friends and everybody we've grown up with and we've known all our lives. And we're just going to France because what the heck? I like cheese and the French have a lot of good cheese. That just does not happen. Or let me put it to be more accurate, that 1 in a million times that somebody moves to another country might be just that casual and that haphazard. But most of the time, for most people, it is a very serious, very, very serious process. I mean, they agonize over it. They think, oh, what am I going to do? How am I going to deal with this? Where can I go? What can I achieve with my limited resources and knowledge of the world, let's say? Because I consider myself fairly well educated, and I read the news constantly, and I know what's going on around the world. And yet, if I were sitting here going, going to move to France, I wouldn't even know how to begin to do it. I'd have to figure out, okay, where in France am I going to go? What am I going to do when I get there? What am I going to do about the fact that I don't speak French? All these different things. How am I going to get there? What kind of money am I going to need to survive until I can get a job? Can I get a job? All these kind of details. I know a lot about. I probably know as much about France as any average person who's never been there, and I would be hard-pressed to even begin to come up with a plan to go to France. Now, obviously, if you're just crossing a border, it's easier than crossing an ocean. But even Canada, I mean, I know a couple of people in Canada, but other than going up to stay with them, I have no idea how I would just move to Canada. I don't know what that entails. Where would I cross? If I was, let's say, not too sure about how I was going to get citizenship or the proper documentation, it would be even harder. It would be a lot harder. But people do this. People do this because all that difficulty, all that loss, all the things that you're giving up and the unknowns you're accepting into your life, all of that is worth it compared to what you're going away from. Certainly not everyone is running away from something. Excuse me. But there has to be, everyone weighs cause and effect, consequences. If I do this, what's going to happen? What makes this thing I'm about to do worth it compared to not doing anything at all or just going with the flow and seeing what happens around here? So it's a big deal. And people don't just do that casually. They have very serious reasons for coming here. So when I say talk about someone being deported needlessly, I'm talking about someone like that who thought about it, who agonized over it, who considered all the options and finally decided coming to this country, even with all the problems that would entail and all the unknowns and all the everything, I mean, I already just went through the list a second ago, is better than staying put. So after all that, they come here, they start to make a life, they get involved in their community, they have some kind of work, they do this and they do that. They are not hurting anybody, and yet they are being up for deportation. They are eligible for deportation simply because of their status and nothing more. And as far as this administration and immigration hardliners are concerned, that's enough. That is a crime that in and of itself is worthy of whatever dislocation and heartache that you can put onto a family, tearing families apart, all those kinds of things. It doesn't matter because that crime is so great that these people deserve no consideration at all. They should have no rights. The Supreme Court recently ruled on indefinite detention for some immigrants who are put in detention on their way to being deported, and they ruled that they had no right to claim, habeas corpus, that they needed, a lawyer, they needed this, they needed that. Like, no, you don't. How you can say that about a person? They have no rights. You can just throw them in jail simply because they lack bureaucratic stuff, paperwork. How many people know, when was the last time you went through all your papers and got them in order and figured out what was what and put them in neat binders? Probably a long time ago. I know I told the story a long time ago of my license expiring and I didn't know it. And then I found out I ran out of gas on the road and the police stopped and they were like, oh, your license is expired. I didn't know it, so I had to go get my license all over again from scratch. And that was huge. It was just so much work. It took forever. I had to go find a copy of my birth certificate. I had to do all these different things just to get my license renewed. That was all it was, my driver's license. Nothing else about my life I had to fix except that. And that was a huge problem. And so you can imagine what a big deal it is for someone else to try to go through that in order to get citizenship or to deal with those larger and almost practically existential questions. It's enormous. So it shouldn't. I totally lost my train of thought there. I was going, and it was like I'm going to say this, and I said it, and then I didn't have the thing to say next. Anyway, I guess I've run out of time here. But you have been listening to CU Immigration here on WRFU-LP Urbana 104.5 FM. We try to come to you every Monday from 7 to 8. And I realize there are times that I don't, and that makes it difficult to know when to tune in. But the good news is you can always tune in on UPTV on Fridays. We're on there. Or you can go to YouTube and look us up, CU Immigration. I have almost 200 episodes on there. You can listen to old ones. You can follow along. You can see when I actually have guests. There are guests on there, and they're talking, and they have much more interesting stuff to say than I do, I'm sure. But in any event, so let's say a Monday comes by and you tune in and all you get is static, which is what happens. No, there's music usually, but you don't get the immigration, the hard-hitting, incisive immigration information and commentary that you're looking for. Well, go to YouTube and check us out there, CU Immigration, and or wait till Friday and you'll see the show live, sort of live. I mean, it's recorded live, but it's never live on Fridays, and so you can get what you need that way. You can find us. So even if I'm not here, there are ways of finding me. As if people are clamoring for ways to find me and to listen to me talk. But you're not, and I know it, and you know it. But even so, I appreciate it when you do share this time with me, and I hope that you will tune in again. And in the meantime, have a great week. Bye-bye.